Welcome to Warfighter Advance, Coming Home at Last, a podcast by and for veterans. Warfighter Advance is an organization whose mission is the successful reintegration of every warfighter. Hi, I'm Michael Arndt, a Vietnam combat veteran and a member of the Board of Directors for Warfighter Advance. Welcome to another episode of the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Joining me today is Endel Lee. Welcome, Endel.
Thank you, Michael.
Endel, one of the unique features that you have is you were sort of at the beginnings of this whole process that we're now calling Warfighter Advance. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the beginnings and how this all came to be.
Well, sure, I'll be glad to offer insights according to my awareness. Of course, Dr. Veton had a series of events and episodes in her life that led up to her considering something more could be done, something different could be done. And we happened to be deployed to Djibouti in 2013 together. And we're working together there. I was a chaplain assigned to the Joint Task Force, and she was assigned as a resource to Camp Lemonnier at the time. I actually had an RP that was working with me who came over due to some special circumstances, one of my fellow reservists, and was able to handpick him to get him engaged and working with our team. And he also got to meet Doc Veton there, or Doc V as I like to call her. And as they became more and more acquainted in our interactions, they began to have breakfast together almost on a regular routine. As I understand the story, I would come back from my PT or something along those lines, and I would hear almost kind of a debriefing of the discussions as they were progressing over the time that they were there together, and heard what I would call sparks and indications of something formative. Chief Ihus had some experience in working with returning warriors and reintegration from his background, and had been involved in another program that had been developed that we used in the reserves called Returning Warrior Weekends. And through that experience, he also drew another one of our Navy chiefs in, Michael Norgren, and there was this swirl of thought that began to seem to take form in them. And in the following years shortly after that deployment, it seemed that, if we could say it, all the dots began to line up, and Doc V then became very intentional in connecting those dots in a real way. And just impressed today to look back at that number of years and see from those formative thoughts and initiative to see how it's come now to touch over the lives of over 800 of our warriors, veterans, and folks who support our country and save lives, I'm sure.
Tell me a little bit about your own personal journey in the military, and you are a military chaplain, and you act as a chaplain for Warfighter Advance as
yes.
well.
Well, I'm a retired Navy chaplain at this point. I started out in the Marine Corps in the early 80s as an enlisted Marine, served about 5 years, made sergeant, then actually became a Marine officer for another 6-year period in the Marine Reserves. At that point, I thought I was coming to the culmination of my military time, but was convinced very directly by the Lord and my understanding of calling being redefined, and then went through the process of transitioning from the Marine Corps into the Navy, and accepted a commission as a Navy chaplain, and then served another 27 years in that role as a Navy chaplain. So 38 years plus in the military, and much of that serving in combat settings in the latter part of my career after 9/11. Became, again, connected with Dr. Veton, or reconnected, I guess is a better way to say it. After our deployments, we stayed in touch. She began to talk about the dynamics, and then once I reached the trajectory of my own retirement, wanted to continue in touching the lives of veterans, supporting our military folks, though not in uniform any longer, felt it was very important to continue to give back, to influence where I could and use whatever skills and abilities, time, effort, compassion to care for our families.
What kinds of things have you noticed as you've been at evolutions of Warfighter Advance among those warfighters who come to this program?
Well, many of us struggle. Some struggle more than others, and in various ways. And I find that this is a place where we can come together through that bond that we have of military service, the things we've seen, the things we've heard, particularly in combat settings that can be very overwhelming to the human soul. I often say that based on my faith orientation and the things we read in Scripture, I don't think we were created to kill, but it's something that has become a part of the human experience because of sin, other things that influence that dynamic. And so as we try to close that gap or deal with that tension in our lives, this is a place where we can come, identify with folks who are having similar struggles, find out in conversation what's helping, what's not helping along that journey, discover some resources, and then again reignite that bond, the relational value of that bond. In the Marine Corps, we call it semper fidelis. You know, it's the always faithful, esprit de corps, those things that connect us in unique ways that I see manifested in the other branches of service to various degrees as well. That Warfighter Advance gives us that safe place where we can come, dialogue about those things, be truly transparent about who we are and those struggles, and then learn from one another to seek to adapt and overcome those struggles.
What would you say to a warfighter out there who may be struggling and is maybe looking at Warfighter Advance? What would you tell them?
Well, I often have that opportunity, and the ones that I engage, I usually say to them, you know, first of all, come and see for yourself, and come with a posture where you're willing to listen to what's being shared, open your mind to those insights that are being given through the leadership, through the staff, but also through the peers that are in the room there together as they open up and offer their experience, and then begin to talk. I found that's a very helpful enterprise, is once you find a safe place where you can talk, to begin to vent, begin to express some of those things that you're wrestling with. And then I like to say, then walk alongside of some of those who've had similar journeys, and then begin to do the work that it takes to reestablish some great anchor points in your life, to begin to be redemptive with what portions of your life you have left. It's a new normal. We often talk about that. It's a different way of living after some of these impacts, crises that we go through and sort through, but there's still much life to be lived, and Warfighters are a place where you can discover what that can look like for you in a very hopeful and a positive way.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today, and thank you for your service and support of Warfighter Advance.
Thank you, Michael. It's an honor and a privilege to do so.
Thank you. And it's my pleasure today to welcome Mike Norgren. Mike has been a longtime participant in Warfighter Advance. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So, Mike, first of all, talk about your military experience.
Oh, that's fun. Well, I originally joined the Navy Reserves in January of '97. Kind of a late bloomer. Life happened, and I just waited, but I always knew I wanted to be in the Navy. So when I was 29, I decided it's kind of now or never. I needed to do it. So that's when I joined. At that point, I had kind of a calling, if you will. I kind of felt like I needed to be involved in ministry. And I found that there was this rate in the Navy called RP, which is religious programs. And I'm like, perfect. That'll give me an idea of what they do in the military, as far as ministry, while I continue my education and possibly become a chaplain down the road. So that's how it all started.
And how many years did you serve?
24, just over 24 years.
When did you retire?
I retired in May of 21.
And what in your military experience led you to Warfighter Advance?
Well, I think you could kind of imagine that within the chaplain corps, there's certain things that we're going to be involved in. Of course, I didn't have really an idea. I mean, I thought we were going to be doing ministry, but as things unfolded, you start realizing that you really had no clue. So initially, kind of stateside shore station kind of stuff. The chaplains, and they're just hanging around the chapel. They're managing the chapel. The chaplains are doing counseling most of the time. But as the war came and unfolded, and various deployments, you start realizing the life and death aspect. Deep, you want me to get into that, but
well, in your deployments, you witness things that affected you, and in a very deep way.
Yeah, the chaplain corps. A lot of times, the chaplains are hanging out, if you will, at the battalion aid station. Most commanders don't want the chaplain to go forward with the units for fear that the chaplains are going to get hurt, because chaplains are non-combatants. But that's one reason why the RP rating exists, is that we're combatants, and part of our job is to force protection for the chaplain in those forward operating areas. The Marines don't need to be worried about babysitting the chaplain. That's my job. But again, it's bad mojo for the Marines, in the event a chaplain were to be injured. So most of the commanders will be like, nah, chaps, you're not going on this patrol with us. You're not going on this convoy. Hang back. So the best area for us was to hang out at the battalion aid station. It's not always the case, but a lot of the times that's what you're seeing. So that's where the wounded are coming in. So then you're kind of at the tip of the spear as far as seeing the combat casualties. So that's been some of my experience.
What led you initially to Warfighter Advance?
After one of my deployments, I was in Germany. It sounds like it'd be great, but we were there as part of the Wounded Warrior debt for the Marine Corps at the hospital in Germany, where all the combat casualties are transferred. So all the medevac flights come in around the clock to launch duel. So in that capacity, the chaplain and I are like patient liaisons. We help with the process, funneling the combat wounded through the hospital. Now, our advancements in the medical field are incredible when you consider like 20 years of war. When dealing with traumas, the level of trauma that we saw coming in every day is mind-blowing. The things that I saw, I don't want to get graphic because it's shocking. But the survival rate was incredible for that level of trauma. But even so, there's a survival rate for a reason, because there's a very small percentage that actually don't make it. And that's where the chaplain and I are really very involved. We're there to take care of the families. As a Marine Corps casualty is great about when the VSIs are alerted by the doctor. That means very seriously injured. When we have those Marines or corpsmen, which are most often the case, when they're I hate to use this type of terminology, but when they're fatally wounded, Marine Corps casualty responds incredibly. And usually within 48 hours, we have a family on deck. So the chaplain and I, that they are our number one responsibility at that point. So we're taking care of the families. But our role really switches into kind of a hospice type of situation. And we even get involved to the point where we talk to the families about organ donation and things like that. I can tell you that, I mean, one of my fears growing up when I was young, and it's one of the reasons why I didn't want to be a doctor, I just thought, and I'm sorry if I start getting a little emotional,
No worry.
but just the thought of having to tell a family member or a mom or a wife that their Marine is gone, it just broke my heart. I say, by the grace of God, I was able to be in that role because I do believe, with all my life, that I believe that God created me and built me the way I am and put me in that place because I could do the best job. And I believe I did. I gave everything I had. I think our whole team did. The doctors and the nurses. I've never been involved with so many people that were so incredible at their jobs. It was awesome, but like I said, unfortunately, we lost some guys, and so yeah. So that's how I ended up here, because after that deployment, I left a little early. After we had our last mass casualty event, I went to our colonel and I said, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I requested to be sent home. But then when you go home, then you got to deal with it. You got to process. And I was pretty lost for a few years. And again, how the Lord works. My best friend knew Doc Veaton. And Dr. Veaton had called him and told him about what she was going to do and invited him. And my friend, appropriately so, threw me under the bus. And that's how I ended up being here. And I'm a plank owner, so I was here at Evo 1.
Yeah. What has it meant all these years? Because you've come back lots of times over the years and assisted and mentored and helped in so many ways. What has that given you?
Well, I tell you, when you're dealing with trauma, you're really trying to sort it out. You're trying to put reason and purpose why things happen and why you were involved. And obviously, so you're left with a lot of questions, a lot of things that you're just, trying to figure out on your own. And unfortunately, a lot of people, when they're in that mode, they either address it or they don't address it. And how they don't address it is they hide behind alcohol, drugs, and a myriad of other inappropriate coping mechanisms. So why I come back is because that first evolution, I was like, this is what I needed. And I know there are thousands of our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marine, coasties, first responders. I know they need a program like this. And I'm like, I found my new mission. I found it. And I'm like, and being involved in this mission, that's going to help me that much more. Because I'm going to help them find the way. So that's it. I believe in this mission.
Well, thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for all you've given to those soldiers, Marines, and their families, and what you've given to Warfighter Advance over the years.
Yeah, thank
it's
you,
a
Mike.
pleasure to
Appreciate
know
it.
you.
God bless.
This has been another episode of the Warfighter Advance podcast, Coming Home at Last. Thank you for joining us for the Warfighter Advance Coming Home at Last podcast. Warfighter Advance envisions a world where warfighters are fully restored through a non-medical process. To achieve that vision, Warfighter Advance sponsors 6 7-day training sessions each year to which veterans and active duty service members can apply, and for no cost to the warfighter. If you or those you know are struggling with issues related to reintegration, please contact us through our website. We are dedicated to lead the way so that every warfighter has the information, tools, and support they need to successfully reintegrate. Until next time, this is Michael Arndt on behalf of Warfighter Advance.